The price of two everyday kitchen staples, onions and sugar, is climbing. And for many Indian households, that could mean a noticeably bigger grocery bill this festive season. Onions that once cost around 25 rupees a kilo are now touching up to 60 rupees in some markets. Onion prices are up by 45% sharply across major cities. And yes, onion is once again making Indians shed a few tears, this time at the checkout counter and not the usual kitchen. Sugar isn't far behind, with retail prices moving from around 48 rupee to above 55 rupees a kilo and crossing rupees 60 in some cities, even over 70 rupees. And the timing isn't exactly sweet with the festive season approaching. Demands for sugar is expected to rise. So what does this mean for monthly budgets? Take a family buying 5 kilos of onions a month. Do the math, it's an extra of at least 175 rupees per kilo. Add the sugar bill. If family uses 4 kilos a month and the price rises from 48 to 56 rupees, that's another 32 rupees per kilo. The government is firefighting. The centre has restarted Kanda Express rail services to transport onion buffer stocks from Nashik to major cities. NAFED and NCCF, different key bodies, are also releasing buffer stocks to increase supplies and cool prices down. When it comes to sugar, ESMA has said India does not have a sugar shortage and that there is sufficient stock and supplies to meet festival demand, saying this is a short-term issue of market sentiment and not a structural supply problem. Economics is many a times nothing but interpretation of data and is a prism of how to look at things. We break through the clutter today. And we get you Sanjay Srivastava, who's a senior economist, and Professor Nandini Datta, who's also an economist. Thank you very much, both of you, for joining me. You know, often what happens is economics gets hijacked. It gets hijacked into technicalities, it gets hijacked into jargons, and often what's left with people is sentiments which does not carry the heft. So today we're going to try do one thing. We're trying to cut through the clutter. Explain to the people what's happening. If at all there is one explanation, what really appears at this point is multiple aspects to this. So let me just start with you, Professor Nandini Datta.
Yes.
What do you make out of this? You know, onions, from what I can gauge, Nashik has had at least over a 70%, 76% price hike. Kanda Express has been launched. Is this something that's seasonal, annual? Government procurements have been less. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
There have been cuts around it as well. We'll get to that. But what do you make out of this? Should the ordinary person be worried this festive season? Or will this pass?
No, I mean, it may pass. That's not the issue. But the issue is also not the festive season. The issue is the general economic condition of this country. If the food inflation skyrockets, and if your basic commodities, which we call in economics the necessaries or the necessities, if they start skyrocketing, they will have a multiplier effect on your budgeting. And of course, whose budget will it affect most? People who are the most vulnerable. People are already out of their pockets. They are not being able to meet their daily needs. They're not being able to meet things like children's education, paying up rents. Jobs are far and quite remote and few, and even those jobs are now pretty low paying jobs that we see for the common man. So quite clearly people's pay packets are not keeping up to the inflation, whereas food inflation, which is a large part of your budget, is really skyrocketing. And to say that it is merely a question of the festive season, I don't think that's the issue. The issue is the procurement policies are not in keeping with even what the government promises. particularly
No,
for
we'll get to the
sugar.
procurement policies, ma'am. I want
Yeah.
specific, I want to get into the specifics of the procurement policy as well. But very
Uh,
quickly, Sanjay Srivastav, let me just come to you. An important word that Professor Nandini Datta has used, and I want to get your perspective on this. She has said food inflation is getting out of hand. She's moved beyond just onion and sugar, and she's talking about food inflation. Do you agree?
Good evening, Sneha, to you and your viewers. So I think we have to first acknowledge the issue and then separate the issue from what is the underlying root cause. So the fact that the onion prices have spiked as well as sugar prices are high, obviously it has an impact to the consumer price index. But at the same time, I'm of the view is we have to look at the underlying cause, and sometimes things get caught. What I would say is this time it's a troika of imperfect storm. So first, the Kharif season monsoon delayed the issue. Secondly, there was a 25 to 30% wastage when this happened. And then the third thing which happened was, as you rightly highlighted, the overall quota, we brought it down for central procurement from about 2 million ton to 1.5 million ton. So all of this has come together. But the bigger question, which is the festive demand and the whether it is transitory or long term, I would put it as there already. You highlighted a couple of things which are already happening, including through NAFAD, NFCC, as well as through Kanda Express. I think it is a transition period right in the next 45 to 60 days when the next crop comes in. And that is where the government as well as the stakeholders are trying to alleviate the pain because no, and then move on to what is the transition. So
Okay,
that's how I would say.
while you're explaining this, now let me come to the next part, and I want to get both of you again on this part. If you are talking
Right.
of this about being a transitional phase, before the government reins in the prices or the prices get auto-corrected, Professor Nandini, I want to come into this. I mean, look at the government targets for procurements. They have seen a series of cuts. Correct me if I'm wrong, both of you correct me if I'm wrong. 2 years ago, the target was a purchase of 5 lakh tons.
Lactons. Yes.
Last year, the target was a purchase of 3 lakh tons. This year, the purchase was a target of 2 lakh tons. Till July, it was around 1.2 lakh tons that were procured. How do you look at this in this context? I mean, we don't need to be caught at the back foot with soaring prices if it is a transitional phase. The government is in place, systems are in place, procurement needs to be done. Procurements have been cut.
So precisely, I would like to say over here that it is not merely a question of transitions. I mean, a bad monsoon, sending a Kanda Express all over and trying to bring down or importing sugar. But look at what the agricultural policies are mattering. I mean, at one point of time, when our farmers are constantly, and particularly sugarcane farmers, have the rawest deal from the sugar mills at one end and the government, who is not willing to stand by at as of now. So, I mean, it was obvious to the government that it was coming, and the government should have done enough to be able to block. I think even if we get out of the political rhetoric about the ethanol mixing in the petrol,
Sure, that's why I
which
did not
has
even
got
mention
very
that.
little to
You know,
do
that's
with
part of
this.
rhetorics, there's counter, there's fact check. Not even
So,
getting into it. There's a whole
uh-huh.
lot of things to discuss even without that.
But I think the government procurement policy needs a serious rethink. And why should it be that, these phases, the monsoon, the rainy season, every time there is a wastage, every time there is a stress on prices, particularly onion, has been regularly doing it. At one point of time, it is tomatoes. At one point of time, it is onions. Why is it not being seen coming?
Okay.
If it was, why don't we rectify our policies of procurement, keeping the buffer stocks enough so that we can kind of flood the market when there is, because this is the right time when the prices are so high. You know that there'll be a lot of nefarious activity. So
Okay.
we needed to do the hedging much before.
Sanjay Srivastava come in at this point. How do you look at the procurement? The government, has it been caught on the back foot? Is this been a blind spot? Has this been a late response? How do you explain the fact that the prices have soared at a time when the, the kharif crops have been delayed? You have the monsoon where the rotting is happening, because of which the rotting of onions is happening during the storage time. The Kanda Express that's going to be launched now. How do you look at all of these things in the light of procurement that's not been up
Sure.
to mark?
So I think Sneha will first and foremost, I will differentiate between the economics and the issue related to onion versus sugar. So sugar is a non-perishable and can easily be stored at for up to 24 plus months, and therefore that is being tackled in a separate manner. Even whatever is the shortfall, for the first time ever now, government has also given a quota for a duty-free import. So that is being tackled. The fundamental issue with onion, and that's where it has been risen. I think it's a bit ironical because initially the prices were sub low that the farmers, especially the small holders, were not in a position to really utilize the market price. And hence a lot of dumping happened combined with the adverse monsoon condition. So the onion, the complete market is actually much more decentralized, and currently our storage capacity is not up to the mark.